You're listening to the Radius Church podcast, recorded live each Sunday in North Hollywood, California.
Hey parents, before we get into the message today, I just wanted to let you know that there's going to be a couple of moments that might create some discomfort on the other side of the screen. So this might be a good chance to check out the resources we have at radius.la/kids. When Katie and I first got married, that's when we moved in together. And I wasn't really surprised by the way that she, made a house and, the habits that she had during a day. What really surprised me is what I all of a sudden took very seriously. Like, I was very serious about the way you were supposed to clean the dishes or how you were supposed to buy groceries. I got very specific about how you were supposed to make a bed. I married this grown-up who did not know how to do hospital corners, right? Like she was raised by wolves or something. But all joking aside, what's really odd about that is that before I was married, I could not have cared less about those things. I was a horrible roommate. I barely ever did the dishes. I didn't wash my sheets for probably years. I was living in like stinking bachelor squalor. That's the truth of it. But now I had this demarcation in my life. Like now I'm grown up, I'm married, we've got to settle down. And so I switched immediately into a this is how you do this mode. The question is, where did I get those reflexes about how to be a grown-up? I'll tell you where I got it. I got those reflexes from these monsters. My family of origin. Now, the word family, when we say this, conjures up any number of things depending on who you're talking to, right? So if you said family to me, I'm thinking about my family of origin. I'm thinking about my parents who were married and still are married. I think about my two younger siblings, my sisters. I think about my maternal grandparents who lived with us for a large portion of my childhood. That was a big part of my life growing up. But when I say the word family to some of you, maybe you are thinking about moms or dads, but you might also be thinking about step parents. You might be thinking about third or fourth, sixth marriages. You might be thinking about step siblings or half siblings. When I say the word family, you might think about close. You might think about distant or strained. You might think fun. Or maybe you think fear. I think for all of us, if we really think about it, when we hear the word family, all of us could think of the word complicated. Because however great or unhealthy your family of origin was, families are complicated. Of course they are, right? You throw together people of different personalities and priorities and tendencies, it's going to get complicated. But of course, there are going to be some of us where it's even more complicated because you add on top of that a layer of irresponsibility or maybe tragedy or divorce or addiction. So whatever you think of when you think of the word family, what I want us to be aware of today is that that group of people has had more of an influence on all of your future relationships than any other group of people. And when I talk about this important idea with individuals, I often bring up the same metaphor, and I've taught on this before. I picked this up, this big tangled rat's nest of wires. And I talk about how the fact is when you entered this world, you were cute and cuddly, but you started to be handed a growing number of these things, right? I don't know where these came from. It came from my house, but I amassed them over years. And even with every move, I bring a growing number of this tangled group of cables with me. And the reason I keep bringing these cables with me is because I have not spent the time to go through it and detangle it and find out, what is worth bringing forward, what connections might still work, and which ones are obsolete and I need to throw them out or they need to be upgraded. So what does this mean for our topic in this series? Well, these are all of the connections that we made in the earliest stages of our lives, when our family defined life and love and relationships for us. You see, the relational side of our brains develops long before the logic side of our brains. And so when you're young and dad comes home and he's yelling, you don't logically think, well, dad might have had a bad day. Instead, the youngest children in the house are thinking, I'm bad. Right? Because the relational side of your brain is defining all of the impulses that you're seeing before the logical part. So even before we defined and developed that logical strength that we have, we were making all kinds of connections about relationships and discipline and performance and our bodies and sexuality and gender and what great friends are supposed to be like and what romance is supposed to be like. And for everybody who jumped on today to join us, the fact is you have brought with you a tangled pile of past connections. So, question is, can we detangle this mess? Even if we had the time, could we really work our way through this and figure out what needs to be honored maybe and pulled forward because those connections are going to be helpful in the future? And what things in those rare instances are just obsolete or maybe even destructive? And if we tried to make those connections into our future relationships, it might create damage. Because if we don't deal with our past complications and our bad connections, those complications will inevitably become somebody else's complication. So today, I want to arm us with one question that we can use to finally detangle this mess and figure out what deserves to be preserved and what we can get rid of. Answering this one question in your life will improve every relationship you have. Your team, the relationship you have with your friends, the relationship you have in your dating life, your spouse, and most importantly, it's going to be felt by the future generation. Because the fact is, almost all of us are somebody's future family of origin. So before I give you that one question though, I want to paint a picture of what family relationships could look like. They can look like if we had healthier connections, stronger connections, the kinds of connections that even if you're not sure what you think about church and Jesus and the Bible and all of that, these are the kinds of connections that you would want for your kids and for your marriage and for your teams. Paul was a guy who started a bunch of churches a couple thousand years ago, and maybe that's not relevant to you, but there is a letter that we have from him preserved to today, and he wrote this letter while he was in prison, actually, and he writes it to one of the churches he helped start. It was a diverse church, and they were struggling to understand how all their various past connections that they made from their unique families of origin could somehow now interconnect with this new family that they were forming. So Paul gives them this vision in the letter that we call Colossians, chapter 3. Here, in this family, there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free. But here's the new establishing origin. Christ is all and is in all. Now, even if you're not sure, again, what you think about Jesus, just go with me on this new vision. This new life, Paul is saying, following Jesus could represent such a fundamental change that it actually starts on something even more significant than your ethnicity, as powerful as that is. It could actually unite us and connect us on a deeper level than our gender, a deeper level than our economic status, a deeper level than our politics. This could unite us on a deeper level than our education and our achievement. It's almost like it's a brand new way of being human together. This is a new kind of family. Did you ever have that experience when you were growing up and you'd go over to a friend's house, and if you're just hanging out for a Saturday, or maybe you had like a sleepover, and you were exposed to how things happened in their family? Like, this is not how they do it in our house. Like, you go over to your friend's house and they don't have a bedtime, and you were thinking like, I have to be in bed by like 6:30 in the evening. They can't even spell bedtime in this family. Or maybe they had like just stacks of sugar cereal. And your family's like, we were never allowed to eat sugar cereal. We would wake up and mom gave me a bucket of dirt. Like, that's what we were allowed to eat. But this family, man, they have all the things that my family doesn't. And in the same way, this family here that Paul's describing, regardless of how you used to do family in the past, this family just does some things differently. He goes on in the next sentence, therefore, as God's chosen people, or we can understand that as family, holy and dearly loved, different on purpose, dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Does that describe your family of origin? He says, bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Any of you has a grievance. Forgive, not just when they've earned it, not just when they've owned up to it, not just when they've paid you back. Forgive as far as God has forgiven you. That's big forgiveness. And over all these virtues, just in case you're confused or you can't remember how to act, put on love, because that binds them all together in perfect unity. Now, some of you might think that actually sounds a little bit like the family that I grew up with. And some of you can't imagine being a part of a family like that. This love that binds together all of our behavior and how we see each other and value each other and reconcile our challenges with each other. A forgiveness that moves before all the perfect conditions are met. A relationship that's not overbearing or I just trying to love you so I can control you. Maybe love for you in the past, it just meant never bothering people. Like, you don't reconcile things, you just kind of let conflict subside and hopefully time will heal, but at least it's less painful than actually confronting the problem. No, Paul says we can go further than that. There's more value than that. Families can be stronger than that. All of this is what Paul means when he says love. And if that happens in this family, he goes on to say, the peace of Christ can rule in our hearts. Since as members of one body or family, you were called to peace. You were called to stability. You were called to be strong in the storm with each other. You were called to be confident in all circumstances with each other. You were called to reconcile when everybody else would avoid. You are called to peace. And then he says, ultimately, be thankful. Then Paul closes the whole passage here, this vision, with this last moment where he says, the church's job is not just to provide for you a different kind of family, but ultimately to reintroduce you to a perfect parent from whom all of these behaviors and adjectives can flow. Verse 16, he says, let the word of Christ, or the message, have the run of the house. In other words, your family story is not the only family story that you can live into. It's not the only story. There is a story that you could be a part of that goes something like this. You aren't what you do. To be a part of this family, it's not something you've earned or something that you have to constantly audition for. You are what has been done for you. That's what you are worth. That's the access you have. Because you are alive, as this story goes, you are worth dying for. That's the message of Jesus. You have a specific purpose in life. That's the message of Jesus. That's what forms this family, wherever you come from, whatever complication you have. By default, we relate to this idea of God based on the experience that we had with our parents. And that's natural. So that could be great if you had a decent experience with your family of origin. But even if it was great, you have to wonder what it left out. Is there more? Is God a more perfect version or a more enlightened version or a developed version of the kind of love that I had the privilege of being raised in? Some of you had absent parents, though. Maybe it was from death, or it was from divorce, or it was from abandonment. You have a heavenly Father now that says, nothing can separate you from me. Some of you, the complication that you had in the past was because of abuse that you suffered. Abusive parents, and confrontation is a scary connection for you because there's been a backlash. There's maybe even been a lot of pain. And what you need to hear God say, like this USB-C cable, is I'm establishing a new connection. A connection between discipline and your value. I only discipline you because I love you and I believe in you. I want to grow you. You don't have to have that old complicated connection anymore. Maybe for you, you had scared parents. They always played it close to the vest. They always played it safe and calculated. Don't take any risks. Don't dream too big. You need to hear God say, I'm calling you out onto the water. You have a purpose in your life, and it's not just going to rely on your power. There's more power available to you to accomplish the purpose for why you are on the planet. Let's throw out some old connections and establish new ones. So disconnecting some of these old patterns and maybe even in some cases, old toxic relationships and replacing them with new, stronger, healthier connections is all driven by one powerful question. And here it is. The question that I want you to ask yourself as you start to wind your way back through some of the connections you made in the earliest stages of life, and as you try to establish new connections in your relationships and new impulses in your relationships, here's the one question to develop a new origin point for a family, the strongest kind of family. The question is simply this: what old patterns won't fit what's possible? What old impulses that I got from the family that I got won't fit the possibility of the family that I most deeply long for? In this family, it's not going to be perfect, but we do have a perfect parent to learn from who wants to empower us to be the kind of family that we want to be. A perfect parent that can help us make some of those new connections. Maybe you would say you were given a pattern in your earliest stages of rage, but it doesn't fit in this family. The perfect parent wants to make you a peacemaker. Maybe from your earliest stages, you connected your achievements with your value. And in this new family, the perfect parent wants to say, I want to establish a new connection that puts your people before the results. And so you don't have to overwork yourself to prove yourself. And you don't have to step over people just to climb some ladder. Maybe there was this underlying favoritism and comparison that you got in the earliest stages of your life. And this perfect parent wants to say, listen, I've called you to love diversity and love working together with people whose story doesn't look like your story. We're going to unite together on something even greater than the most significant parts of how we identify ourselves. There's a new kind of family established and rooted in a powerful love. Maybe you would say you had some connections of the way you look. and how valuable you are based on your appearance. Maybe you believed, whether explicitly or implicitly, that you were ugly. But in this new family, you don't have to torture yourself to be accepted, to find out that you are beautiful, to find out that your body, with all of its shapes and all of its imperfections, is sacred and it's precious and it's worthy of love. Jesus proved it. Maybe, to be really specific, you developed a connection with sex and your sexuality where it was a tool to use to gain something that you wanted from somebody else. Maybe it was just casual or it was a punchline. But in this family, we see people as even more than bodies, but a powerful connection between the body and the soul. And sex is a powerful gift that, when honored and respected, can help for the flourishing of relationships. Dad dominated. I want to serve. Mom was selfish. I want to be sacrificial. What old patterns and connections won't fit what is possible in this new family? Now, truth is, from our old families of origin, we established all kinds of connections. Some of them are healthy. Some of them are helpful. And you're going to want to find your way through those connections and maybe reconnect those to this relationship that you have now or the relationships you'll have in the future. Connections that you made with your emotions and your body and your accomplishments and your place in this world. Some of those connections might be strong and some might not be. When I say family, there's some of you on the other side of the screen that say, listen, I got nothing to build on. There's nothing worth preserving. No connection was made for me early on that I want to keep it all. And I know there's also somebody joining us today. When I say family, you're thinking maybe they gave you all that you need. Like those connections were so powerful and great and awesome and healthy. Truth is, whether you think your family gave you nothing or they gave you everything, I think there's more value waiting for all of us. That's the truth. So what values or patterns deserve to be salvaged or preserved, reconnected to your future? What's worth keeping? What's worth bringing forward? What things just simply need to be upgraded, revisited? Maybe there's a stronger way of making a similar connection. And for some of us, in some very rare instances, hear me say that, there may be some toxic connections or some toxic, maybe even dangerous relationships you have in your life. And the time has come, because of what is possible in your future, to free yourself from the power and the control that that person, that relationship is having on your stability and on your peace of mind and on your future relationships. It might be time for someone today to have one, out of love, last conversation that says, I care about you, but I just have come to realize I have a purpose in my life. I have hope. I do love you and I forgive you. You don't owe me anything else. I'm not waiting around for you to fix yourself before I move on with my future. But I want to be honest, I do not trust you with my life anymore. I'm going to put some boundaries around our relationship. I'm going to miss you a lot, but I will not miss out on my future. Maybe it's time for someone to have that conversation, to finally throw away a past connection that is not going to help you for your future. I just implore you to do this for yourself. Jesus has proved that your life is worth everything. But if right now, because of some of those past connections, you don't even think you're worth it yet, then let me give you one motivation that might spur you on to making this kind of progress. Who do you love enough in your life to do this for? Is it the person you're dating? Is it your kids or the possibility of having kids in the future? Is it your team? Is it your parents? God also wants you to know that you should be included in that because you are worth loving this much. What old patterns will not fit what is possible? Let's establish a new origin point, not with a perfect family, but on a perfect parent who can give us stronger connections than we've ever had before. Now, if you would, you can close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes, but I want to lead us through a little prayer just to process through this, and then we're done. As we're praying, you might be thinking, well, my family's not even around anymore, not alive, but those connections are still a part of your life. They are the legacy that you will leave in your future relationships unless you face them. Some of you are asking new relationships to fall into old patterns. You might even be judging the quality of your current relationships compared to past relationships. Some of you today, as you just have a quiet moment to think about it, you're still angry, you're still scared, you're still living up to the expectations of people who aren't even around anymore, and you know that's crazy, but you don't know where else to start. God, I choose more. And maybe I'm praying with somebody today. We choose more. Not a perfect family. That's nowhere to be found, but a perfect parent. You're here for us. So, Father, give us the wisdom to identify what old patterns and connections won't fit what is possible in you. What's broken, what's painful, what's immature, what is just flat out wicked. God, maybe there's someone who doesn't fit what's possible. I wish they did. I know you love them, and I can't fix them, but right now I just don't think they can be a part of my future. Now, as we're praying and processing, some of you realize that you're really not a part of this family yet. You've visited, maybe you've visited frequently, maybe you've eaten all the sugar cereal. I want you to be in this family. God wants you to be in this family. So maybe your prayer today is, your conversation with God is, God, would you adopt me? Would you adopt me as your daughter? Would you adopt me as your son? I want to be in your family. I trust that you made me to be your child. It just makes sense. I trust that you've done everything necessary to make it happen because your own son gave his life for me. There's nothing left to pay off or earn. I am not what I do. I am worth what has been done for me. And even though I don't know all the answers, I just trust that I don't have anything left to fear because he's alive again. Maybe because he's alive again, there's a high probability that I can have a brand new life. So I want to follow Jesus and be a part of this family. Save me from a life without you. Lead me to a life I can't have without you. Amen. Now that last little bit there, if that's the decision you've made, or maybe it sounds like a decision you might want to make, but you need some more information, go right now to radius.la/decide. And you're going to see all of that written up so you can make a decision for yourself. And right now as we close, our hosts are going to tell you about a brand new way that all of us can experience a sense of family right now in this season. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. For more information, follow us on social media at Radius Church LA and visit us on the web at radius.la.